Is it too good to be true? Can these guys really keep up this production? Well, the answer's no. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and my favorite drink is a single plum floating in perfume served in a man's hat. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. And why don't you check out old mates over at lockedondaily.com. You can get your favorite team's best NBA newsletter served into your inbox 5 days a week. We're here on, again, unfortunately, National Pistachio Day. But today we're talking about sell high trades, or, again, if you aren't trading or can't trade or your deadline is passed or whatever, we're talking about guys who are just really playing over their head. And we're going to expect a level of regression. Now, sometimes, does that mean anything? I mean, it means something. It means production's going to drop. But often we can stress a lot about this stuff and go, oh, what happens when this happens? A lot of it, it'll drop and you go, okay, whatever. I adjust, I move on. I drop if I need to. I hope somebody else steps up. I stream in different areas. It's all about, adjusting. It's dodging, dipping, ducking, swerving, the 4 Ds of fantasy basketball. That's what we're trying to do, is make adjustments every day, every week, whatever it is, trying to figure out how we can get the next best thing happening. Let's have a look at how our sell highs went from 2 shows ago. Not bad results. We had Norman Powell on that list. To me, that was relatively obvious. I've been talking about that for a while. Now he's also injured. He was 27th, and now he's 89th. There was just numerous things about him with steal level, 3-point percentage, and usage numbers, which weren't all going to persist at the same level, and he's dropped off, and he's fine. Obviously, we keep rostering. We hope that the knee issue is not something that goes on long term. Pascal Siakam was also one that was never going to hold. He was 15th. He's down to 84th. So that's sort of elasticized, boomeranged its way past where it needs to be. So he'll bounce back from that. Paul Washington Jr., 29th. There was a lot about what Washington was doing. This was, I believe, before the Luka trade. I think it was before the Luka trade. And we're talking about how Washington was putting up these numbers and Luka was out and he was going to regress, but there was a lot of other numbers there that weren't going to hold. And of course, Luka's not coming back, and I don't think Davis is, and I don't think Gafford is. But we know that this man is incredibly inconsistent, and Washington now, who sits at 115th, will be better than that. I don't think he gets back to top 30, though. Tamani Kamara, well, he just continues to be awesome. Yesterday, maybe not as much, but still pretty good. He was 58th and he's 53rd, so he's sort of hanging around that number. It is really worth noting with him is that he hadn't really crossed into the top 100 this season until about 4 weeks ago. He'd been like 130th to 200th for the first 12, 13 weeks of the season. But now we are seeing some big numbers from him. And the last one there is DeAndre Ayton, who he's a tough one because as I realized that I didn't even change that number there. I should have actually changed. For some reason, I didn't put the correct stat there. So he didn't go to 8th. That's incorrect. He was 16th, and he is 170th since then. So that 52 to 8 is not correct. He was 16th. He's 170th now, and he probably isn't coming back for the season. So I wasn't selling high on him because I thought he'd be injured. That just happens to have occurred. But there was just a lot of things in what he was doing that weren't going to stick at that number. Let's talk about some guys right now who I don't think are going to stick at that number. I think the obvious one here, we're going to go to Chicago. We're going to talk about Josh Giddey because Giddey is, he's massively benefiting from the Zach LaVine trade. But is it all just because of that? That's the big question. Over the last 2 weeks of action, he's 15th. He's averaging 45 fantasy points. If you narrow it down to the last 2 weeks, which is 5 games, he's like a top 10 player. Do we actually believe in Josh Giddey doing that? Look at his numbers down the bottom. He's averaging 29 minutes for the season at 13, 7.5, and 6.5. They're all really good numbers, clearly. I think that with the absences and with what they're doing with him at the moment and with the Ayo injury, that he's going to be probably a top 50 guy rest of season. But there are still things that are happening here, which no matter how much of a fervent supporter of Josh Giddey you are, you're not buying this because let's what do we do? What do we first go to? Hey, is he doing this through ridiculous shooting? Of course he is. 57% from three. That is not real. Josh Giddey is a bad three-point shooter. Well, actually, you know what? That's unfair to Giddey because he has improved his three-point shooting a lot. In fact, he's at 37% over the course of the season. But bro, he's at 57% here from three. Over the last 5 games, he's at 64% from three. You are talking about a situation where that could be a 30 percentage point drop. So while he's been great, he has, no question. Can he keep up the rebound numbers? Maybe. Can he keep up the assist numbers? Also, maybe. Although his assist numbers are not that high. He's rolling at like about 5.5 assists, 6 assists. It's not that high. He's just shooting and everything is going in. And it's not just that. Because now he is hitting 89% from the line. Okay, so I'm sorry, what? He was at 81 last season. He's at 79 this season. So he is turning a season-long true shooting of 56 into a rate of 68 through insane three-pointers, through a gigantic bump in free throws. And that's not all, because now all of a sudden he's blocking shots. He's at 0.6 blocks per game for the season. The absence of Zach LaVine does not turn this man into Dikembe Mutombo. So while it is easy, this is why I think this is why I like what I do. This is why I like this show, because digging into different things that we can do and the way that we can see these numbers. Because the surface level thing is, they traded Zach LaVine, they gave the keys to Josh Giddey. That's it. He's off. That's big numbers. But I look at that and go, yeah, sure, but Zach LaVine doesn't make him a 57% shooter. Zach LaVine doesn't mean Josh Giddey's now blocking 2 shots a game. Those two things are not related in the slightest. There's no correlation on that at all. It's got nothing to do with it. It's fortuitous timing, and it's easy to craft a very straightforward narrative as to why it's happening. But that narrative it's just garbage. It's not true. None of that is not real. LaVine leaving does not turn you into the greatest shooter literally of all time. It does not turn you into a guy who defends the rim at this elite level. Josh Giddey's block numbers the last 4 seasons: 0.4, 0.4, 0.6, 0.6. Yeah, he's just going to triple his block rate because LaVine is gone. He's not. I assure you of that. He's also bumped his steal numbers up. So he's getting about 1.5 steals over this time as well. He's also at 19 points a game, largely because the 3-point numbers and the free throw numbers are sky high. Is his usage up? Yeah, but not that much. It's up from like 22 to 23. It's not that big of a deal. The rebounding is up, and that's interesting. But why? Well, Vooch missed the last game, but was LaVine a big rebounder? No, not at all. So just a lot of stuff. A lot of it is just a bump in minutes, and I think that's relatively real. But there is stuff happening with Giddey at the moment that has absolutely zero shot of holding. Zero. So, yeah, you could sell high on him. You could get maybe, if anyone gave you a top 30 guy, you'd love that. But just understand that this is not real in the slightest. None of this stuff, or most of that stuff, has no shot of being able to hold. It's just not going to stick. Now we go on to a player that wasn't a former teammate of Josh Giddey, but did used to play for the team that Josh Giddey plays for now, and is now a former/current teammate of the guy that left that maybe made Josh Giddey into this good player. Of course, it's just DeMar DeRozan that I'm talking about. DeRozan's been an interesting player all season, who it was a real struggle for him to fit in. You know my thoughts on him as a guy that's a winning player, and I think when you have to put DeMar DeRozan on a team and give him a large role, it just takes away from so many other guys, and it's almost impossible to build a high-level squad there. I've had that thought many times. But I am not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that what DeRozan is doing at the moment is not good, because it is. He's 32nd over the last 3 weeks of action. He's averaging 40 fantasy points. For the season, he's at 22, 4, and 4. Now, the 4 assists is down from his usual numbers, and that's probably to be expected. But Doug Christie is just pumping minutes into this guy like crazy. So, what do we do? What's the story here with DeRozan, who, again, is rolling top 35 over the last 2 weeks, when he hasn't been that number really all season? He hasn't been a top 50 guy, and I don't think he's going to be a top 50 guy. So is there an obvious standout? Oh, yeah, he's shooting 46% from 3. This is DeMar DeRozan. Now, to be, again, like Josh Giddey, to be fair to DeMar DeRozan, he is taking 3 threes a game. That's the most he's taken, I think, ever. He's hitting them at 36%. That's one of his best ever percentages. And volume is great. He's hitting threes 1.1 a game. He hasn't been at that number like ever. But I don't care, because he's not going to be a 46% guy. He's not. His 3-point attempt rate is also massively up for some reason. He's at 3 attempts per game, but coming out of the break here is at 4.7? His true shooting's at 66. And while we can all sit here and believe that DeMar DeRozan's a great free throw shooter, and we'd be correct, I will always talk about this part of things, is that you can be a great free throw shooter, but the difference between 87 and 94 is the same as the difference between 87 and 80. But we just put 87 and 94 together and go, it's all just good. Right? DeRozan's running at 94 at the moment from the line. He's at 87 for the season. So when those numbers come back, you're talking about a sizable drop. He's also hitting like 2.1 threes a game. He's up to 5 assists a game. There's a chance 5 assists stick with De'Aaron Fox gone. That's possible. He's blocking 0.6 shots a game somehow. I don't really know what's going on with that, but that's okay. But realistically, it's just he's taking threes. They're all going in. His free throws are 7 percentage points higher. The assists and rebounds are up. Not sure if they hold. They may not. I don't know. But realistically, it's just the shooting's not going to stick. He's not going to be that guy. For as good as he is from the line and as low volume as he is, and the improvements in the volume is good from three-point land, there's none of this stuff that is a realistic scenario. And is this because De'Aaron Fox is gone? Again, no. De'Aaron Fox did not turn DeMar DeRozan into a good three-point shooter. Zach LaVine arriving did not turn him into a good three-point shooter. It did not turn DeRozan from an 87 into a 94 free throw guy. It's all just coincidental stuff. So DeRozan, look, there is an outside shot. He's able to maintain top 50 numbers. I don't think he will. I think 70 or between 80 and 60 is realistic. But at the moment, everything is going right, and you've got the double force multiplier of free throw percentage and three-point percentage and three-point volume, all adding everything onto it, and that's making him look just way better than I think any realistic expectation should be. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8x the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8x the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November the 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right, we're going to go now to two teammates, and these are obvious, I think, to most, but as always, and I see this happen all the time, and I'm sure you see it too, and I'm sure you've done it, is that you've got a player on your team who you really like, and you love the production they're giving you, and you're like, I've waited, I knew it was coming. And then you convince yourself into a scenario that is just unlikely to happen. And of course, that scenario I'm talking about is the Minnesota Timberwolves keeping Julius Randle in a bench role so Naz Reid can play 38 minutes a night. It's just, hey, I won't rule out anything. It's not like the Wolves have been on it. They were great yesterday in a comeback. It's not like they've been cooking everyone every game. And I guess it's possible. But I hear it all the time from somebody who's got Naz Reid on their team. It's like, Reid's obviously way better. Randle screws everything up. They're just going to keep Reid doing this. And until I see it, I won't believe it. So that's why I'll put Naz Reid on this sell high list. Not only is Reid benefiting from Randle being out, but Gobert is out. And DiVincenzo is out. And they don't play the same position, but that's 3 starters, all out for the Wolves at the moment. So Naz is the 28th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. They are fantastic numbers. He's averaging 43 fantasy points. Nobody has ever denied that Naz Reid is not a fantasy stud. He is. The thing about him is I think that there are significant troubles with him defensively. I think he's one of those guys that can put up very big numbers, and he was very instrumental in their comeback yesterday. But also, he was also part of the lineups initially that struggled. And I think he gets incredibly overrated at times, which can lead to distorted fantasy views for him. At the moment, it is very obvious what is going on. He's playing 37 minutes a night. And irrespective of what you think of Randle or what you think of Gobert, he's just not going to be a 37-minute a night player. Like, that's just not going to happen. The other thing that's happening is he's doing the thing that really does force multiply everything about his fantasy production. He is now hitting 90% from the line. All right, is he a bad free throw guy? No, but he's at 82 for the season. He was at 74 last season. He was at 68 the year before that. So is he actually that good? He's improved a lot, sure, but we're at 90% here. He's taking 8 threes a game. He's taking 17 shots a game. He's at 1.6 blocks. And you'll go, yeah, I know, because, he's getting more minutes. But that's not it, because for the season, he's at 0.9 blocks in 27 minutes. So he's done the thing, which is not a common thing, where when your minutes go up, your per minute rate improves in blocks. Usually, you play more minutes, your per minute rate drops. But he's playing more minutes, and the per minute rate has gone through the roof, which again is an outlier, unlikely scenario. His assist rate has also gone up. Not his assist total, his assist rate per minute. The more minutes he is playing, he is doing more assist-wise. And that's largely because no Randall, no Gobert, no DiVincenzo, so they just put the ball in his hands a lot more. 10 rebounds a game is a huge number. He's at 7.7 for the season. There's just so much here. Every number here is just incredibly inflated for Reid, because not only is it Randall out, but it's now also Gobert that's out. And maybe Gobert stays out a little bit longer, but it's going to crash back. It might not be initially. They might Reid might start next to Randall because Gobert might be out. But if there's any way that anyone would give you a top 50 player for Naz Reid, in an absolute heartbeat, I would do that. In a heartbeat. Because it's not just that Randall's out. It's not just that the minutes are up. It's not just that Gobert is out. It's that he's also doing that by then getting more assists and hitting more threes and hitting more free throws and blocking more shots, which all could drop even if those minutes stay. A lot of that stuff could just fall away even if the minutes stay. So it's great. You love this at the moment, but there were periods this season where he was like just the 140th best player and nothing was changing. And now everything has turned in his favor. And I don't think it stays that much in his favor as we move forward. We're not moving on from Minnesota because Jaden McDaniels is also in the similar boat, because he is putting up some fantastic numbers. McDaniels has been an incredibly bad fantasy player for the minutes he's gotten in the past. He's just never done anything. He's a defender who would never get defensive stats. He'd never do anything usage-wise. His shooting would be low volume and very inconsistent. And now with guys out, he has shown an ability to ramp up. He is the 55th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging almost 37 fantasy points. He's playing 37 minutes a night. And one of the big problems with McDaniels in the past was he could never stay out of foul trouble. He has improved significantly in a lot of different areas this season. But once again, is he losing his starting spot? No, he's not. Will he play fewer minutes? Well, that's possible. He's only at 32 minutes per game for the season, and he's rolling at almost 38 minutes a game at the moment. But it's not just that. 83 from the line for the season. What was he the last 2 years? 72 and 74. So has he improved as a free throw shooter? It appears that way. But he's also going at 91% now. Okay. Not really sure that's going to hold. He's taking 14 shots per game. What's his season-long number? Yeah, it's under 10. And last season, he was at 9. He's at 3 assists per game. What's his season-long number? 1.8. What was it last year? 1.4. What was the year before that? 1.9. Has he improved? Again, yes. But all of this has tied into these increased minutes, the increased responsibility, and when Randall and DiVincenzo and Gobert for different individual stats all return, everything deflates. Will McDaniels become a droppable guy? It's absolutely possible. Look at those numbers down the bottom. 12, 6, and under 2 with 1.4 steals, 1.3 threes, 47 and 83 and 32 bits. They're not good. They're like whatever numbers. They're not terrible, but they're not great. But he's parlayed all of these absences plus bumped usage plus being able to be a better shooter from the free throw line. Now, I will say this. During this time, he can't hit a 3 at all. He's at 22% over his last 5 games. So yeah, that could actually improve. But it doesn't offset all of this other stuff here to me, which is just flying at an incredibly high level. And he won't lose his starting spot, unlike what I think will happen to Reid. But the minutes will drop, the usage will drop, the free throws will drop, the shot attempts will drop, the assists will drop, the scoring will drop. It'll all fall back. And if there's any ability, again, with someone like this, to get a top 75 player back, I would do it without any question. Without any question. Because it's not just all about opportunity. It's these two things pushed together, which I think are one of the better things. When we're looking at sell highs and buy lows, we want to see statistics that are rate statistics that are up or down in the other case, minutes that are up or down, and narratives. And if you can tie all of those things together, and the Reid one's a little bit more like that, where you can go, well, he's so much better than Julius Randle, he's surely got to stay in the lineup, where I just don't believe that'll happen. So tying all that together always furthers your case of being able to do something on the trade market with those sort of players in those sort of scenarios. We've got one guy left we're going to talk about on the Sell High Show. Before we do that, though, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready, because if they swoosh, you save. Thanks to DoorDash and Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. When anyone scores 50 in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members will get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Whatever it is that you're looking for. You want to grab some lunch? You want to grab a healthy salad? You just hope it's not one of those life-endangering salads. Shout out to Dustin May, who's back. But whatever it is, on DoorDash and Dash Pass, you can get that 50% off up to $10 if someone drops a 50 bomb the night before. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members can get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders of participating merchants. You must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Last one. We're going to go to Charlotte because Miles Bridges is putting up good numbers. And we know that the Hornets are in the midst of some just absolutely horrific stuff. They lost, the last two games by about 95 points combined. They are in the bottom four again for worst record. Things are unraveling very, very fast. And Bridges was actually pretty bad to start this season. And he's turning it on at the moment. Over the last 3 weeks, he's the 27th ranked player. He's averaging 42 fantasy points. And some of that, Mark Williams has been out. Some of that, LaMelo Ball has been out. All of that, Brandon Miller has been out. And that's not changing. And Ball will miss some time and Williams will miss some time. But I'm not even going to sit here and tell you that they're definitely shutting Miles Bridges down. That might happen. That might happen later in the season. And you know my thoughts on this. Usually those sort of things tend to crop up once you pass March 25th. Usually. March 20th, let's say. Because it's not just all of that, right? Because he has had a pretty poor season from shooting from three. But let's also be clear on this. Miles Bridges has had a pretty poor career shooting from three. He had one really outlier good shooting season, but otherwise he's a 34% guy. And he's at 32 this season. Except of late he's at 44. Of course he is. Oh, there you go. 12 points up, 13 percentage points up. Helps. He's also a guy that you get the idea that he's this great defensive player. Well, last season he averaged 0.9 steals and 0.5 blocks. This season it's 0.8 steals and 0.6 blocks. So basically identical. The last 3 weeks are just 1.6 steals and 0.9 blocks. Okay. You want to turn that into the dreaded ST word? That's 2.5 stocks versus 1.4 for the season. So he's just on a defensive run and hitting every three and taking a lot of threes at 3.4 a game. Usage is at 32%. Yeah. Will he maintain high usage with Brandon Miller out? I think it's possible. But also, LaMelo's been in and out there and he's doing a lot more. But it's the other stuff, the hidden stuff. It's got nothing to do with that. Him getting more blocks, him getting more steals, Bridges hitting 44% of his threes has nothing to do with Miller or Ball or Williams or anything like that. It's just all tied up in a neat little package. And then there's the risk. Not only is there the risk of an injury or a shutdown or whatever, but there's the risk of them getting pumped by 50 and his minutes come down in those games. Now, it hasn't been a huge drop in his minutes, although he's played 30 and 24 the last 2 games. But there are those risks involved. Is that they just get cooked so easily that he plays half games. And that drops everything back. He's not an easy guy to trade away. I know that, and a lot of you won't even have him on your teams for whatever reasons. I think he can still be a 50 to 80 ranked player rest of season, but if I could get any top 50 numbers back, even if it was top 60, I reckon I'd probably do it just for the fear of where the minutes go. And he's not immune to being bad. He's a combined minus 54 over the last 2 games. It's not like he's like the sole guy out there. He has been terrible too. And I just think that it's just so many like red flags here in terms of availability, in terms of minutes, but also in terms of individual rate and cumulative stat numbers, which are just going to be really, really hard to keep up. But you don't have to keep up with this anymore because it's over. It's done. Go and enjoy your stinky pistachios. Sit back and discuss the buy lows and sell highs and do that in the comments if you want. Hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and do that on the audio side as well, and double bang and listen and watch both of them. And assess your team. We're getting into fantasy playoffs. Work out what your streaming strategy is for the week. Keep it all rolling and keep the positivity going. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.